Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends. Thanks, as always, for being here. I'm your host, Erin Bradley. And if it's your first time tuning into the show, get ready to have your mind blown because that's what we do here on the Pursuing Freedom podcast. And if you've been here for a while, thanks, as always, for your support and your continued listening. I love having you. So today, I'm really excited to finally have Renee Gaugler on the podcast. And it's so insane because I've basically been cyber stalking Renee for, I don't even know now, over a year, because she is a lender in the Bozeman, Montana area that has just been consistently operating as a top producer. She's good friends with one of my coaching students, and we were introduced a while back. And I've been following her journey and thinking to myself, we need to get her on the show because, as you know, if you've been listening for a while, I'm really passionate about exposing the strategies and the mindsets behind those who choose to thrive in turbulent times and those who crumble under the pressure of turbulence. And so Renee is a perfect example of that. So I'm going to let her share her story, and we're going to unpack some systems and strategies and scale that can help anybody listening make a few changes to your business and get radically improved results. So with no further ado, thank you, Renee, for being with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. Now, you've been 20 years in the mortgage industry, so you've been through it all. But give
Yep.
us a little background on your journey, how you ended up in this crazy industry, and how your journey has unfolded to where you are today.
There's always a story there, right? Because nobody is a little kid thinking, I want to be a mortgage loan officer when they grow up. In fact,
Right?
most people don't even know my job exists when they're that age. I actually was teaching some 300 level finance classes at MSU as a guest lecturer the other day, and most of them did not even know that a loan officer existed or that 100% commission job existed. So yeah, I actually started out, I have a biotechnology degree, and I knew that wasn't going to be my jam. I graduated from MSU and I didn't really love it. I didn't love the lab work. I was a farm kid, thought I'd go to vet school, started in school and was like, yeah, I'm not doing 8 years of this. So that's not going to happen. And so when I graduated, I didn't really know what else to do. And the only other thing that I knew was title insurance. Believe it or not, working at a title company was my first job when I was 15. And I started, doing their filing and typing title policies and things like that. And so when I graduated from college, that was the only other skill I had was title company. And so I called them. I called a title company that was opening here and asked if they'd hire me. And they were like, great, you have title experience, show up and we'll figure out something for you to do. So I worked there for about 2.5 years at Stewart Title in Bozeman. And I was a closer for a couple of years, which is the person that explains the documents to the customer. So my job was to explain to these customers, this was in 2002, 2003, 2004. So it was my job to explain to them the crappy loans that they were getting without throwing the lender under the bus, because the lender was my customer that was sending them to me. And time again, people did not understand the loans that they were getting. Nobody was like, oh yeah, I know. Like that never happened. They were always like, oh, what? But they just always thought, you know what, it's okay. If we get in trouble, we'll sell the house. And I did this for a couple of years and finally realized this is way too important. This is somebody's most important financial transaction they're ever going to do, and somebody has to do better. And I guess it might as well be me. So I quit. I walked into a local lender called Intermountain Mortgage and just said, you take a shot on me. I don't know how to do loans. I know loan documents. I know the process, and I know every realtor in town. And they were like, sure, good luck. Here's a stack of business cards and a link for the Fannie Mae selling guide, which is the loan guidelines. And your 100% commission, have fun. So I literally, back then we had real phones. And so when the phone would ring, I would beat the receptionist to it so that somebody would ask me a question and I'd have to go find an answer to it. And I would sit with other loan officers or the underwriter or whoever was willing to teach me things. And then I started kind of looking for resources online. It was kind of before YouTube was a cool thing. So I was actually ordering DVDs online to watch so that I could learn about mortgage rates and housing markets. And I actually just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the fact that we can really use a mortgage as part of your financial tool, as opposed to like the necessary evil to get a house, because nobody wants a mortgage, right? They want a place for their family to live.
I'm laughing because you started out by saying farm kid, and the first thing I thought was resilience, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, work ethic and the willingness. I don't know. I feel like everyone I know that grew up in farm world, they just have this like thick skin, and you kind of need that in this industry. And when you were talking about being the closer, and I was just picturing my early years in the mortgage space and the lack of integrity and the things that people tried to teach me was acceptable to do, which I refused to do, and the lack of ethics. And so, in hindsight, watching the market crumble before our eyes, and then knowing the exact types of human beings that were responsible for that, and that, and as you were talking about the loans, like thinking back to those option arms where people didn't
Mhm.
realize they had choices for their payments. They just got sold on this low payment that actually resulted in their mortgage balance going up with the negative amortization, like the
Right.
craziness that I walked into in 2006. So talk us through your journey into, you know, oh 07, oh 08, oh 09. Like, did you survive? Did you thrive? Did you crumble? Where were you in that wild ride?
Well, and first of all, the option arm, like I think people understood that they had options of their payments, but they didn't really understand the consequences of what that was going to cause them. And all of those products had, well, not all of them, most of those products had a target consumer that it actually would be a good option for, but it was marketed to the wrong people who got in trouble with those. So when people ask me all the time, how did you get through 2008? And to be honest, my business doubled in 2008. And the reason was because before 2008, any monkey could get a loan and any monkey could do a loan. And it didn't matter that I was an expert and that I had taken all this time to do things the right way. And I mistakenly thought if I was the best at what I did, people would line up around the block for me. Turns out not true. It took me many years to figure that out. By the way, I always say I did my first year in the mortgage business 7 times because I made the same mistakes over and over again. But when 2008 happened, all of a sudden it wasn't just about price. It was about people were scared and they didn't understand what was going on and they needed somebody who was an expert that could actually walk them through the process because the perception was that nobody can buy a house at that point. And so having that ability to show people that it is still possible, it's just not like super easy like it used to be. It's about as hard as it should be right now. And so that really helped me a lot. A lot of the shady people got out of the business or started doing loan modifications or went to jail or were foreclosed on or whatever else. So lots of that. I mean, I do think that market cycles weed out some of the bad eggs, right? So for me, it was a really good thing. What I knew finally mattered. And it was definitely where things kind of started to shift for me.
And then let's fast forward to now. We're recording this in 2025. You're on track to do 85 million in volume this year. You've got 7
Hopefully.
million closing this month in March, and you're already off to an incredible start. And I know you finished the year strong in 2024. So can you share any of the process that has been helpful for you to create that level of success in your business over the years?
I think part of it is realizing the things that actually are income producing as a loan officer. Like we have to own that part of it. And the other things that are maybe fun or whatever else, or maybe not fun at all, we have to get those delegated to somebody else who's going to be the best at that. My assistant Shelly, I call her the documentation queen because she will, if there are deposits we need to deal with on a bank statement, she's your girl for that. I don't even know most of the guidelines on that anymore because she's got that so dialed. So I think focusing on the actual things that will move the needle for you is the most important thing. But that comes down to consistency every single day. And in this market where there's a lot of lenders who I call it kind of soft quitting and realtors too, to be honest, that they're waiting for the market to get better, waiting for rates to drop. Because in 2020 and 2021, we all became superstars. We all became the people that we always wanted to be. And it wasn't because we did anything right. We answered our phone and we plugged loans into the system, or we answered our phone and sold people houses. And we didn't do anything to make that magic happen. And so then after we come out of that, people are a little complacent. They forget what it's like, or they came in at a time they never had to do that. Or they think they're above it now. I think that's more common than anything. They think, well, I shouldn't have to call my database, or I shouldn't have to go send out a newsletter or whatever it is. I think people need to stay humble and hungry. And for me, the daily things, the most important thing that I see that moves the needle for me is phone calls, database phone calls. And then people will say, I don't want to make cold calls. I didn't say cold calls. I don't call anybody that doesn't know me. I am calling my clients. And I'm not just saying, hey, do you need a loan right now? I'm calling and checking in. And, for example, after closing, we always call, congratulations, thank you so much. What can we do better? How can we serve you? And I set that expectation right there. I'm not going away. I'm going to call you at 6 months. I'm going to call you at a year. We're going to check in. We're going to make sure that this mortgage is still a good fit for you, because chances are it's not the only house they're ever going to buy. And they know that. And I know that. And I want to make sure that we're structuring this loan to fit into their overall financial picture. So part of that is just getting clients to think about it differently so that they have a different experience with you than they ever have with any other loan officer. Because here's the real deal. As a loan officer, we see people's bank statements, pay stubs, tax returns, credit report. There is nobody else in your life that sees all of that. Nobody. And so I think that's a really special responsibility for us. If we're just cranking out a loan, the customer comes in, says, I want a loan, and you give them a loan, that's a miss. Like, we kind of failed on that. It's a time to take a look at what are their other financial goals and how does this mortgage fit into that, especially if it's not their first time and they're a move-up buyer. They got probably a chunk of tax-free money from selling that house. And they all think they should just put it right into the next house, but that's almost never the right answer. Keeping a good cash cushion is huge. I always say paying off a mortgage is a good goal, but that's like number 5 on the list. Number 1, cash cushion. Everybody I've ever seen in financial trouble would have been okay if they had a good cash cushion. Number 2 is paying off other debts. Credit cards, auto loans, maybe student loans. Don't pay anything extra towards a mortgage or put extra down payment until you've tackled those other things. $10,000 on a mortgage is like $60 a month. $10,000 on a car is probably $300 a month. And $10,000 on a credit card is more than that. So it's all kind of about cash flow and what makes the most sense for them. And then retirement. Everybody's behind on retirement savings. And then most people have a goal to own more real estate. They want to own a rental property. They want to have a second home in Arizona if they live in Montana or Florida. So we try to think about what are those other financial goals and really get them to think about that, to realize that we're setting them up for their future. And when they realize that, nobody else exists because nobody talked to them like that. It's not about interest rate anymore.
100%. I could not agree with you more. We talk about this all the time inside of my coaching community, that if you're selling an interest rate or yourself as a real estate agent, you are not significant enough from the competition. And
Yeah.
once you start having higher level conversations around what's your long-term plan for this property and how this plays into your wealth building journey and what other
Mhm.
resources do you need on your wealth building journey, and do you have an estate attorney and a financial advisor and all these people,
Yep.
all of a sudden you're awakening the mind of the client to start thinking differently. And now they're
Yeah.
thinking about you differently. And the way they talk about you is different, which is where the referrals come from. How did you transition from young college graduate coming out of title work and becoming a product expert through all of your research to becoming a business development expert? Because they're two different skills. Like, you can find a great technician that can cross T's, dot I's, and know guidelines and pre-approve, but you're talking about a much bigger vision for your relationships and the value that you deliver. Was there any fundamental mentorship, books, resources, communities that helped you develop that confidence?
Yeah. So the first thing that was a game changer for me, this is not what you're going to expect me to say, but there was a disaster of a loan officer that worked in my branch. And again, I thought if I was the best, people would line up around the block for me. And I held on to that for a long time. But there was this gal that was an absolute train wreck. And I was 24. I looked like I was about 12. I thought I had to be so professional and I couldn't get to know anybody on a personal level. And she closed more than me every single month, like double what I did, even though half of her loans fell apart. I mean, there would be realtors sitting in the front of our office ready to like wring her neck because she hadn't told them that the file had zero chance of closing and it was 2 days before closing. But what she did was she got to know those clients. She cared about them. She cared about their families, and they loved her so much. And granted, she threw everybody else under the bus, which was not the right answer, but they cared so much about her because she cared about them. And it's the old cheesy saying that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it is still a balance between, especially when you're young, because you do have to be professional, but you have to care and you have to kind of my favorite thing used to be talking to like the little old men that would come in when I worked for Wells Fargo because they assumed I knew nothing. And or when I was actually a closer at the title company, again, I was super young. People would walk in and see me as the closer and be like, oh man, like she's not going to know anything. And I would take those documents home with me the night before and read the whole dang packet. I knew everything forwards and backwards so that there was not a question that they could ask me that I couldn't knock it out of the park. And I'd blow them away every time. So I think preparation is that, but it's about not over preparing. You're never going to know everything. And as soon as you do know everything, they're just going to change it anyway. That's just how the mortgage world works. So I think you just have to jump in there. You don't have to know all the answers. You need to know where to find the answers. And it's okay to say, hey, that's a great question. Let me find that out for you. But it's really simply just about building those relationships. And it's about clients, it's about referral partners. My database is the biggest gold mine that I have. But I also have a networking group, a biz to biz group that I'm in that I started 15 years ago. And the relationships in there, like that group has been my bread and butter for 15 years because they all know me, they all love me, and they won't let anybody else use anybody but me.
Well, you mentioned earlier delegating, and I know from experience you can't get to 85 million in volume without delegating.
Right.
And I also know how terrifying it can be. So I'm curious, at what point did you learn to get out of your own way in order to really grow? And did you have fear? And how did you work through that?
I used to have a processor that I used to be like my files had to be so perfect and so dialed in that I didn't want to give it to the processor until it was perfect. And now I can look back on it and see that that was my like sales reluctance because it was more fun for me to sit there and make the file perfect than to go talk to somebody else. But my processors would literally come in my office and take back when we had physical files, take them off my desk and be like, this is mine now. It's good enough. And I'd be like, so they had to kind of start training me on that. My coach recently told me if somebody can do it 80% as good as you, let them do it and they'll eventually be better than you. So for me, like it's been a bumpy road with assistants. I had one at one point that immediately was a terrible fit. I'm very snuggly with my clients. And she was just like, I need this now. And there was no snuggle. And it was such a sharp contrast that it didn't work at all. I lost clients. I had a client that was cleared to close and just refused to sign because he's like, I can't work hard enough for your assistant. So that didn't work. I've learned that there has to be a little snuggle in there. Then when I was at Wells Fargo, they wouldn't let you have an assistant until you got to another level. So I really got stuck and couldn't get any further out. So it was when I finally came to Cornerstone, where I'm at now, that they were like, well, of course, loan officers have assistants. Here's your assistant. The day that I started, and her name was Rhonda, and she passed away a couple years ago, but she was amazing. And that's how I finally learned was by actually having a person that knocked it out of the park for me. She did a great job. And I just had to learn to trust her because I didn't really have another path to do that. And part of it, like I said, was just me acknowledging that it was me avoiding the sales part of the job. I didn't want it to be a sales job. And I fought that for a long time, thinking I don't want to be a salesman. But you know what? Like, I'm not trying to sell anybody something they don't want. I'm trying to help them buy what they already want and do it the right way. And so I've had to embrace and kind of put my arms around being a salesperson and acknowledge that that is what I am. And it's okay. Like there's a lot of good salespeople out there. When you think about salespeople, you always get the like slimy used car salesman is what people think of, but it really shouldn't be that way. There's a lot of amazing people that are in sales. And it's funny because when I was a kid, I thought the people that made the money in this world were the doctors and the lawyers. Now that I'm a loan officer and I look at people's income all day long, the people that make the money in this world are the salespeople.
Yeah.
The doctors and lawyers, they do okay, but they have a lot of expenses and they hate their life. So the salespeople are the ones that have it figured out. And you want flexibility and you want literally no salary cap, go into sales. And there's another thing in there. There's a book that I highly recommend, especially for women. It's called Secrets of Six-Figure Women. And it talks about all of these blocks that we have mentally. And I think everything we do is a total mindset game. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. But for example, this book talked about the subconscious things that we have that we don't even realize are putting a ceiling above our heads. So for example, as a farm kid growing up, the rich people were the bad people. Like I was a farm kid and in Whitefish, Montana, which is very affluent. And hearing like my parents talk and there was never positive things about the rich people. Those were the entitled people. They didn't work hard. And so I had this mindset for a long time in my career where I didn't even realize it, but I didn't want to be the rich people. I didn't want to be the one that was making that money that my parents would look down on. And it really took it when I read that book, I was like, oh my God, this is totally me. I absolutely have this above my head. And so I had to really do some soul searching on that and get it out of the way and realize that, money, it's okay to be motivated by money. There should be more conversations around money. And that was, in fact, we have a little podcast that we're doing as well. And that was our first topic, was like, money should be an open topic. More people should talk about, my daughter's in high school. I want her to ask people, how much money do you make? Because she's in the stage where she's figuring out what she wants to do. And I think that should be an okay question. So I think it's really about figuring out what's stopping you, and you got to get that out of the way first. Figure out what your why is, figure out who you want to be. And being somebody with money, like, yes, it allows you to have nice things and do go on trips and whatever, but it's about the difference you can make for your own self. People say money does not buy happiness, which is true, but being broke is a lot more stressful than knowing how you're going to pay your bills each month. So there is a certain level of happiness in that when I'm not budgeting every single penny every month, and I can write big checks to charities, which is one of my favorite things to do, is make a difference in the people who I want to make a difference in. And everybody's motivation's a little different. So you got to find that and not be ashamed of it.
I love that. You have said so many things that make it so clear why I was so drawn to you from the very beginning. When you were talking about, like, if there was no snuggle, we used to call it the virtual hug. Like, if they don't feel the virtual hug. And I actually still have the magnet sitting right next to me of our team's motto, which was the Maya Angelou quote. I've learned that people forget what you said and people forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Made them
And
feel
like,
100%.
I know exactly what you're talking about with the struggle with, I hated, I thought sales was a dirty word. I struggled financially for years because I was so averse to being seen as salesy. Like, there's so much
Yep.
stigma around it. And then at the end of the day, it's like all you're doing is trying to serve and be of value to people. And if we could remove that stigma, and also remove that stigma around the fear of abundance, and encourage abundance, because
Exactly.
abundance with good people is more impact and more contribution. You're right. And so I love all of this. I also want to acknowledge what you said earlier about database phone calls, and that the database is the gold mine, because I don't know about you, but I feel like there's this issue in the industry of lenders are still being told, and I know realtors can't stand it either, to cold call 30 realtors every Monday and get them to have coffee with you and hope that they have it all figured out and that their volume is going to fall down to you. And in my experience, I knew that I couldn't put my livelihood in the hands of anyone other than myself. And if I wanted to create that growth, I needed to own my own business, and that meant the database. And so was that ever something that you had to sort of figure out, or because I was pretty much always database centric. I refused to chase realtors, but that's just because I hated feeling salesy. So,
Yeah.
so I'm curious if there was an evolution there for you.
Totally. I mean, I think I spent a lot of years like, thinking it was cold calls and being afraid to call them because they hadn't heard from me in a while. And I know a lot of lenders feel that way right now. Well, I've never called them before. And now when I call, it's going to feel like I'm hungry because I'm starving to death. And it's why I set that precedence up front. Now I'm going to call you at 6 months. I'm going to call you at 1 year because they already know why I'm calling, and they will answer my call. But we do snuggle a lot up front. So they love us by the time we're done. They are happy to talk to us. But I think the other reluctance for people is they don't know what to say and they don't know who to call. So I think that's the two keys to making database calls is on Sunday night, I plan out my week and I write out the list of well, I shouldn't say write out. I have a spreadsheet and I put on there who I'm going to call this week. And sometimes it's birthday calls. Those are easy. But a lot of times it's, of course, loans in process. But database is more like, hey, I'm just calling to check in. It's been a year since you closed on your house. Congratulations. How's everything going? And it might be as simple as, hey, I'm watching rates for you. I want you to know that's not time to refi yet. You might be starting to get some solicitations out there. It's still a fairly predatory market, so be aware. I'm here for you. If you see something that seems too good to be true, send it to me. But I'm watching it for you. I've got your back. Is there any other financial concerns you have or any new goals I should be aware of? So it can be that simple, or if it was a realtor and you're calling database, I would call and say, hey, I sold you this house 3 years ago. I just was looking at your neighborhood. Do you have any idea what your house is worth right now? Like, this is what it's worth. Like, congratulations. That's a big deal. And, ask them if that house is still working for them, because the majority of the people that bought in 2020 and 2021 did not buy the house that fits them. They didn't have a choice. They bought whatever they could get their hands on in 2020 and 2021. And now they feel this golden handcuffs of 2 to 3% interest rate, and they think that they can never get out of it. So I ask clients about that. I just say, man, I bet you're loving your interest rate. Hope you're not paying extra on that, because today's home buyers would hate you for doing that, kind of tease them about it a little bit. But just saying, hey, I'm running into a lot of clients who have accumulated a lot of credit card debt, or their house isn't a good fit for them anymore, or their auto loans are killing them. Does any of that ring a bell with you? And just shut up and let them talk, because they'll tell you. And a lot of people are having those pain points right now. And there's a ton of opportunity to make a difference for people. If they figure all they see is, I got a 2% rate, I need a bigger house, and it's going to be at 7%, I'll never be able to afford it. But what we do a lot is take that 2% house. When they sell it, we can pay off everything else they have, get down to, yes, they have a new mortgage payment and it's bigger, and they put less down than they thought they were going to, but they have one payment and they have the house that they need. And in a lot of cases, that feels really, really good. So we run all that math for them, put it together in a simple spreadsheet that they can see how they can have what they actually want. They can have that house for their family. So it's all about asking questions. It's typically, you want to just talk to them, see what their pain points are right now. And they might be doing great, and that's awesome. I think that's really it. It's just, how can you help people? If nothing else, it's a phone call of, hey, I'm getting a ton of questions about the real estate market and interest rates right now. It's super interesting. Do you have any questions about that? I can answer for you. I'm not selling them anything. Everybody has those questions, and they know, and the media gets it wrong. So whatever you can say to just help them get over some of those fears, or give them some right information, I think is important.
I just have one last question for you, because I want to respect your time. And I know you got 4 new applications today for people that are basically already under contract. So we need to get you back to work. So thank you. My last question for you is, it's so obvious that you have a heart of gold, and you've built a business that I assume has people coming to you left and right because of the value that you've delivered consistently over time. So my last question is, how do you keep yourself energized and enthused and consistent, even amidst those peak volume times where you might be thinking, gosh, it's time to add that next team member, and maybe you're experiencing some overwhelm? Like, what's your antidote to keep your enthusiasm high and your heart open for more in those times? Because some people fear too much more
Yeah.
than they fear too little. And even though the stress of being broke financially is tough, sometimes the stress of burnout is even harder. So I'm curious if there's any tools, or I don't know, it's even like your morning routine or anything that keeps
Yeah.
you going in those times.
It's such a good question. Part of what fuels me, obviously, is talking to clients. Like, that refuels me every day. One other piece of that is just the relationships with my referral partners. So I'm never going to just cold call realtors on a Monday. If I want more realtors into my sphere, which I am lucky enough at this point, a lot of them come to me, especially with my social media, that will ask me if they can refer people to me, which I'm like, yeah, that's the point. But so the way I've always done it is, I ask somebody else for a referral. One of my agents that already loves me, I will say, hey, who in your office is crushing it that I need to talk to? And then I have somebody's name. I can say, hey, Ashley told me to call you because she said that you're awesome, and I should connect with you. Do you have 15 minutes for a Zoom call, or do you want to grab a cup of coffee, or whatever it is? So I think just building those relationships fuels me, and being able to pour back into other people. I did a presentation at a real estate office this morning, and being able to give them excitement and share your enthusiasm so that they can go share that, like, that definitely fills me up. But you're right, overwhelm is a real thing. And for me, it's like every day I start with the to-do list. I highlight everything that has to get done that day. I write the numbers 1 through however many millions is on the list, and then schedule it into the calendar. Because the problem is, people try to cram too much into their days. It doesn't work if you don't schedule it. And you're still gonna have days like today where I blocked out a ton of time to work on old stuff from yesterday, but I got, like you said, I got 4 new applications from people that are either under contract or trying to write an offer today. And you got to take care of those people too. And so the wheels fall off sometimes, and you need to know that it's okay. But the best thing that I learned to do, I used to be such a night owl and I was way awake at night and staring at my phone because that was when I had this little sliver of time and it was just for me. But I learned to get up early, tackle the day at 5:30 or 6 o'clock when nobody else is there. And a lot of people will say, start your day with your affirmations, start your day with your gratitudes, which I'm all for that. I usually do that when my computer's in a slow spot, and that's when I can knock that out, or when I'm on a conference call or something. But I think starting your day with your non-urgent important things. So what are the things that will move the needle in your business that you don't have time to do? You do that first thing in the morning before you ever start tackling your day. And I think that fuels you and helps you get to that next spot. And obviously delegation is a big piece of it. And I think just knowing what to say no to. This is my big focus for this year. I want peace and I want to say no to a lot more things, because saying yes to something means you're saying no to something else. So before I say yes to anything, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And I don't always get that right, but I'm trying really, really hard to do that and really only do the things that fill me up or make me better or make me money or make me healthier, or like a, just a better person in general. So I think it's a constant journey. I'm always trying to level up a little bit. But this year, I'm also stepping that back. Last year, my goal was I want to read 50 books. I read 52. This year, I'm like, I want to read more things that don't make my brain hurt. Like, I just want to read some things for fun. At the end of the day, I can take a bath and I can wind down and I don't have to feel like I'm on all the time. And I think that's the key, is you have to have that self-care. You have to schedule in the time for a massage or a vacation or even going for a walk. And the thing I've really learned is that your brain can only do so much in a day. If you sit down and you try to hammer out 8 hours worth of work and not do anything else because that's all you think you have time to do, you will fail at it and you will start getting sloppy by the end of the day. You're better off to take little chunks, work really hard for an hour or 2 hours, and then go walk for 30 minutes. And then come back and work really hard for another couple hours, and then go move your body, do something else. I am still really working on this, but I promise you that I am way more efficient when I do that. When I try to work late into the evening, I'm not as good. People are not getting my best. So it's a balance. It's very hard to do. And I think it's ultimately delegation and figuring out what does fill you back up and making sure that you make time for that.
Boom. Drop the mic. That was so good. You are just amazing and a true professional. And I
Thank you.
just love everything about you and the way you run your business. And I wish I could just jump through and give you a big snuggle right now. I totally
Well,
see why
someday.
I can see why you're so successful. And it's really, I mean, there's so many takeaways. I just took pages of notes. So I just really do appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time to share, because I know the
Yeah,
listeners have gotten a ton of value from this.
I hope so. That's the goal.
And to all my friends out there, thank you as always for tuning in. What did you think of this episode with Renee? If you found some value, if you found some takeaways, make sure that you are going to be following Renee. Send her a DM, send me a DM. We love to know that there's somebody out there listening and getting value. Speaking of which, if folks want to find you, follow you, get a hold of you, where should they do so, Renee?
Yeah, you bet. The best place to find me is on my Instagram. It's Renee Gaugler Mortgage, and Gaugler is Gaugler. In my link tree there, it'll take you to everything else that you want to see. My website, my podcast, anything else in there. But my Instagram is a great place to start. I do. I'm very consistent with my content. There's reels that I put out almost every day just on home buying tips. And I think with that, it's about just being authentic. I mean, who you see in the reels is who I am on this podcast and who I am in real life. And it's not about me. It's not about making my hair perfect. It's about the client. It's about the audience. So reach out to me at any time and I'm here to help.
Thank you again. And if
Thanks,
you guys
Erin.
loved this episode, make sure wherever you're consuming it, you leave that 5-star review, because it helps us continue to attract amazing humans like Renee and help this content get found so more people can be on their journey to building a life you don't need a vacation from. I love you. I appreciate you. And I'll see you next time.